Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Return Missionary Next Chapters podcast. I am your host, Sid Bassett. Today we sit down with Kenny Candia, a gifted entrepreneur and father whose life started down a path most never experience. He shares how life marked by gang involvement, jail time, and broken relationships radically changed by a mother who loved him unconditionally and young missionaries who invited him to come back to Jesus Christ. His story is a powerful reminder that even in our darkest circumstances, divine intervention and steadfast faith of friends can lead to extraordinary transformation. Kenny's experience offers hope, practical advice, and a blueprint for turning around your life and turn to God's grace. Discover how Kenny's cycle of rebellion, repentance, and renewal shaped his path to becoming a devoted father, husband, and successful entrepreneur. Kenny, welcome to the show.
What's up, Sid? Thanks for having me.
So good to have you. So let's go back to those early days, Kenny. Tell us about your home growing up and what was your relationship with your family and God?
Well, growing up, I have two older siblings. They're like 10 to 12 years older than me. So I was a lot younger. And then they're technically half siblings because they have different fathers than I do. Their dad was white and my mom was Hispanic, so they just look white, so they're a lot different than I am. But we were raised together, grew up together. I had an okay relationship with them, my sister mainly, and we were raised going to church. I never really liked going to church. I remember in primary, this was when I was before I was like 13, before I was a teenager. I remember in primary specifically, I was like, I didn't sing hymns. I stopped singing hymns, but I didn't want to. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. So that's kind of how it was with me. But I always believed in God, though. I always believed in there was a God, for sure.
So I take it when you go to church, you're referring to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
I guess your
baptized
parents.
when I was 8, yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in the church and you didn't really care for singing the hymns. And at some point, about the age of 13 or so, you decided to chase a different path in your life and not necessarily God first.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you share with our listeners about that?
Yeah, I got, my mom was great. Like, she did everything she can, showed how to work. So I feel like I had a lot of freedom, just because my mom had to work graveyard and either, that's a night shift. So imagine me, a teenager, I kind of have nights to myself, so I could go out and do pretty much whatever I wanted. Mom she can't really do anything. She could check in on me, she could do whatever, but she can't really do too much. I remember she had to come and leave work a few times because I was either got in trouble with the police or something like that, or I was stranded in the middle of some dangerous city. She had to come get me. But yeah, that's kind of it. All just stemmed from the people I hung around because the area I grew up in. I mainly grew up in a town called El Sobrante. Because that's next door to Richmond in California.
Yeah, I know where Richmond is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. It's the same city. It's just it's a different name, So, but it was, it's pretty ghetto over there. Yeah, pretty much going to schools growing up. I either got kicked out from pretty much every school I was in. And it's funny because in elementary school, this is before I was 13, but this is very similar. It's like a jail scenario, because when you get kicked out of school in that area, they send you to a school where other kids get kicked out and get sent to the school. It's like jail. You put all the bad kids in one place. It's like climbing a ladder. You had to reach certain levels, and you get to a certain level, you have to stay at that certain level for 3 months, and you can go back into normal society school. And there's fights every day, man. The teachers would abuse the kids, the security guards would throw the kids up against the wall and put them in this dark room when they get in trouble. So when it comes to when I'm 13, I'm the cool thing is to get a part of, we call them cliques, which are gangs. And what clique is from what part of town, and you're repping a certain part of town and all these things. That's the cool thing, right? To be accepted in that environment. So that's kind of the route I chased because that was the cool thing to do. So 13, 14, I was all right. I was doing a bunch of stuff. And then high school started. That's when there's the gangs, like Norteños, Sureños, Hispanic gangs. And you have the black gangs. And I was mainly part of all the black gangs and stuff. And all the stuff you had to do to get a part of the gang. People get jumped in or go fight people in random fights with different enemies. And so you have to get it on film and stuff. There's just different things you had to do. So I just wanted to be part of if you weren't a part of any of that, you're called a nerd. Nerds get bullied. but I wasn't like a nerd. I wasn't gonna be the one that got bullied. So I'd rather be with the people that are bullying than like get bullied. And then the gangs kind of beef with each other or they kind of hang out and are cool with each other. So I mean, now looking back, I feel sorry for the normal kids that actually went to that school
Hmm.
because they would just be like in the crossfire. There was a riot every single year with the blacks and the Norteños, the Hispanic gang. It's like what? It is this. This is like 14 to 17-year olds, man. It's crazy.
Well, it's not a life that many of our listeners will have lived, but it is a life that you were dealt, and it's sort of the
Mm.
path you went down. And you talked about this relationship. I'm just curious. I know you can't speak for your mother. She sounds like somebody who you love and appreciate all that she's done for you. I suspect that was hard for her.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to juvenile hall, she was just heartbroken, man. And I remember the second time I went to juvenile hall, it was pretty soon after I got off an ankle monitor when I got released. She was like she was upset. She went through it, man, a lot. Now looking back, I'm like, dang, how did she do that? You know, like what the heck? And then she still had to go to work and like perform at work, you know? But yeah, she was always supportive. That's why I hold her in high regards, you know?
I've worked night shifts and it's not easy because you lose sort of your social circle too because you're working odd hours and people don't. As you now look at your mother from where you sit with your beautiful family, what are some of the thoughts you have about your mother in those early days? And what are the feelings that have kind of gone through your mind from the way you were in those early years?
I've always respected her, considering how I was living and the type of like how I would treat other people and stuff like that. I was never like a bad person. I would do bad things. I wasn't parented bad. I was parented good. You know, I didn't have my dads, never did anything to really disrespect my mom. You know, still to the day I don't do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is she still with us?
Yeah, she's around. It's a big blessing, you know, because she's been able
Oh
to see
yeah.
like my family, temple attendance, church attendance, growing in the gospel, growing in business. She's able to see all that like firsthand. You know, I remember for her, me going on a mission, boy, like that was insane. Cause I was living a life totally contrary all the way up until I started prepping for my mission. Now it was like a 13-month prep. It was like September. I went to jail. This time I went to big boy jail, right? And then I got out on bail. It was for like some gun charges. And then like that's when I ran into the missionaries. I was like hit rock bottom. I'm like, dude, like no, now I'm 18 and I went to jail for the first time. I'm like, what the freak, man? And that's when I was praying to God. And anyway, the missionaries came knocking my door. And then that whole like scenario with like, hey, you ever thought about serving a mission? I decided I'm gonna serve a mission. That's what I'm gonna do. I can do that. Like I can do it. But I'm like, I got gun charges. I'm on bail right now. Like, how the heck am I gonna serve a mission? Long story short, I asked for a miracle. I changed my life. It was a couple months. I changed my life around. And I asked Lord, like, dude, you helped me out so much so far. Can you just please erase those out the system? Please. I'm prepping for a mission. I'm like 2 months in. He does exactly what he did. Absolute miracle. Absolute miracle, man. They're gone. Totally gone. I'm like, what? So yeah, then like a year later, I left my mission. My mom,
Okay.
she knows about the jail stuff. She knows everything, man. So like by me going on a mission, I don't think she took me seriously when I told her. I remember when I told her, I think she was trying to sleep. You know, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna go on a mission. She's like, oh, that was great, honey. That's great. But she was like, have a sleep. And I'm like, man, she don't believe me. But like that process and then me leaving, she says the biggest miracle of her entire life. And I can only imagine. Like, you think you have a wayward kid? Yeah, I mean, like, wayward kids nowadays weren't even as bad as I was. The heck, not even close. Not even close.
Child's play. They tell you things, oh, it's child's play.
I'm over here, I have a boyfriend living with her boyfriend, blah, blah, I don't want to go to church. Great. At least you have a place to live and you're not committing crimes, right?
Right.
You know, like at least you have potential to get married, right, with somebody that you love, right? Like just different like things, you got that type of stuff. You know, there's always people are so quick to judge their kids, man. And I just can't see, I can't do it, bro. I can't. My mom never judged me. She always loved me. That's why our relationship is so good now.
Yeah, it's relative, isn't it, when it comes
Mhm.
to kids and the things they do. I want to go back to those earlier years. You were 13, 14, 15. You were trying to find yourself. You mentioned that you were in and out with God and your relationship with God. Like you
Yeah.
try to come back closer to the church and then you slip away and you came back. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah. So when I was 13, mom couldn't really force me to go to church anymore, so I kind of stopped for a couple years, and then I got in trouble, went to juvenile hall, and then I got out on ankle monitor. then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to church because I can go to church on ankle monitor. But also, I had a desire to go. It's not like I was like, I could get out the house, you know? So I went to church and I met some really key people, man. Like
Mm.
some really, really key people going to that ward in Martinez, California. Even to this day, I have some really good relationships from that.
I want to hear more about these friends because our listeners have friends, right? They have people they've met. Some of them strengthened them. Some of them, have not been strengthening to them. So let's hear about those one or two people you met in Martinez, California that really had an impact on you.
Yeah, one of them is Jake Littman. I'm gonna send this to him too, so he can listen to this because he's gonna get a hit out of this because he was there in the trenches with me, man. Like I would go to church. I was a part of like I think I got my priesthood. I lied in the interview. I remember I was like, oh, everybody else got it, so I'm like, I'm gonna do it too. So I lied. You know, I wasn't living the standards. I was on ankle monitor, or even when I got off ankle monitor, I don't know. I forgot. It was like a little bit, but anyways, I was, and then eventually I got in trouble again. It's like the pride cycle. Like you repent, you want to go to church and all that stuff. It's exactly the pride cycle. So I remember I was like not doing good again. And Jake, I already had built a relationship with him. And I remember he came to my house and I was in my bedroom. My mom let him in and he knocked on my door. I'm like, I didn't say anything. He's like, hey, Kenny, it's Jake. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody from church. Right. And then he left a note under my door. And I don't know, I don't remember what it said, but I remember that, you know? So that's when I just didn't, he was always there. It's funny because he had kids my age too, kind of in the same city. They're like golden standard kids though, this homecoming queen, prom king, all those kids are like all of that. They're like the host house because they're at a big high school. I didn't go to that high school. I went to continuation schools in the area, like three different ones, man. He's always supported me, even till like this today, man. We've been playing phone tag over the last like few weeks. Yeah, we're playing phone tag right now. We're trying to talk to each other right now, but it's hard to catch each other. He's busy, I'm busy, whatever. No, but it's crazy the paramount like uh, relationship that stems from stuff like that. And he actually was there at my ceiling, and he sat in the place where my father would sit by my mom. So I'm really close with him, his wife Sarah, really, really, really close with them, and then their kids. But I'm mostly close with the parents. I'm always close to the parents, man. Even in this world we're in now, I'm always cool with the parents, and they have kids that are my age and older. I'm always cool with just the parents, man. That's just how it always is.
So why do you suppose that is?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Probably maybe my lack of having a father. Maybe the lack of connection growing up with like adults. I kind of like yearn for that. I'd say so. Maybe I'm gravitating more towards that. I'm not too sure.
Well, I certainly have appreciated our relationship, and I'm a few years older than you myself. So I'm glad that you do appreciate the older generation. So
Yeah.
this Jake this Jake friend of yours, I guess he was sort of a young men's leader or something like that, or maybe just somebody in the ward that found out about you and decided to take an interest in your and your well-being.
I don't know what he was at the time. I have to ask him. I wonder if he remembers. He probably don't remember either. I remember I was selling Cutco knives too at the time, and I sold him some. I sold my neighbors some. I sold some people and other people in the ward some. I was always trying to like sell some things. And he always supported me. I have to ask him, like, remember you met? What was your calling? What were you doing then? No clue, man. I don't remember him. Like, I don't recall him being like any priest meetings or teacher or priest or anything like that.
Well, I love those mentors along the way that have helped to lift you up and buoy you up. So just we'll fast forward here a little bit, but it sounds like your relationship with the church was a bit on again, off again. You talked about the pride cycle. You talked about sort of you came in and you went away. Let's zone in on that experience you had. I think you talked about being on the freeway and just realizing you were at rock bottom and you need to make changes. And it was shortly after that. I think you said like even the next day, that's when you referenced the missionaries coming to see you. And you just said, look, I can choose this and I choose it. And then you spent time getting your life put back together again. Could you explain to me a little bit about that? Because that seems to be pretty life changing.
Yeah, interesting thing is when I just kind of yelled at God in the car and I'm just like, please, I didn't ask for anything. I said, please. and I think like the next day or 2 or something like that, the missionaries came to my door, but I didn't answer. I don't know if it looked like I answered. I didn't answer. I was like, "No, I don't wanna talk to no one right now." And then I realized missionaries, when they knock on someone's door, they go to their car, and they stay in their car for hecka long. I'm like, "Why do they do that?" But now serving a mission, I know why they do that. You're planning
You're
your
planning your planning
Yeah,
day, yeah.
exactly, yeah, and, I went and walked to the store, and then they were in the parking lot, and I was like, "Crap." So they got out their car, and they saw me, and I set an appointment with them for the next day, and then they came, and then they knocked on the door again, and I didn't wanna answer, and my mom was like, "Answer to some missionaries," and I was like, "I don't wanna answer," and she was like, "You talk to them, sis. Oh, answer the door." And so I answered, and I let them in, and then that's when that conversation happened. Just a bunch of resistance. When you resist something, that's what you should be doing. But that's what I learned, like, recently too. That's kinda how that happened.
Ironically, that was likely the spirit trying to whisper to you, and you're fighting it. Yeah, I find that those who fight the spirit the hardest and strongest are the ones who feel the spirit the strongest, and so the
Mhm.
fact that you were fighting it meant that you actually felt the spirit, and you were trying to reject that feeling, and yet somehow you succumbed to that prompting, and you met with the missionaries. So being with the missionaries, was that I know you talked about sort of your rationale about going on a mission, the shock of your mother when you decided to go on a mission, and probably the shock of your priesthood leaders at the time who didn't know that you were even thinking about going on a mission. So when you were preparing for that decision, tell us about that journey, because that can be hard for people, and people can give up on that journey. Just having the right idea that, "Hey, I'm gonna go be a missionary," it's not solved then. You're not gonna put in your papers the next day. You had some things to do, you had some work to do. So could you explain that? Because we call it a repentance cycle. You went through a period of repentance and getting your life in order. How would you refer to that time in your life?
Yeah, around that time, I still had some things to work out. I kinda had this girlfriend, this ex-girlfriend, 'cause she's the one that actually helped bail me out of jail. And I haven't talked to her. We're broken up for a few months, and I was the only person I knew who to call. I knew she had the means to do it, and then she answered the phone. I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I need you to come and get me." And she did. So we kinda started courting again and building that relationship again, and it was a very toxic relationship. So through that process, we were still seeing each other on and off, and then I decided to make a mission, so a drastic change. Drastic. So I'm telling her about this, and actually, I think I got her to meet with the missionaries one time, and, she she was pretty supportive, but I don't think she took it seriously. Because, like I said, it was just a drastic, like, a hard stop and then switch to another lane. You can go over there. So, eventually, we got into, like, a fight, and this is I already had made the decision to go on a mission, so I broke up with her. Dude, that is literally God, because we can never break up with each other and stay broken up. So I broke up with her, and then she tried to, like, come to my house a couple days later and, like, work things out and stuff, and I was like, "No." I just said, "No, no, no." And then since then, yeah, we were broken up, and I even ran into her, like, on the freeway, like, 5 months later at night. Like, it was crazy. I'm like, "What the heck?" And then so we started talking again, but I was already, like, it was, like, in the summertime, so I was already kinda, like, I was clean, I was, like, living a pure life. And I don't have, like, addiction tendencies. I mean, like, when you do something that's addicting, you're gonna get addicted to it, but I can quit and, like, stay gone. It's not gonna be like, "Oh, I need that thing?"
I love the credit you give to your Heavenly Father. So you went through that year, you stayed with it. I think you said that many of your toxic relationships sort of faded away or
Mhm.
disappeared over time. And presumably you have to replace that. Did you develop any new friends? I mean, you talked about Jake and others. Were there other friends that kind of supported you up to that point where you're able to put in your papers?
Yeah, I wasn't in the same ward I was with Jake. We had moved. I moved a lot through my life, but I was in the YSA ward. That helped a ton. That was a deal maker right there.
Mm.
YSA ward was fun. A lot of people liked me. I went to all the events, went to institute. So the young single adult program that the church has, that's paramount. I loved it. I had so much fun, so much fun. That's what really kept me like dialed. I was like eating everything up. I went to all the events, all the dances, everything, everything. That's where I met my wife.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So you met her before your mission.
Yeah, she had a boyfriend though. Yeah, she had a boyfriend. So I didn't really care. I was like, I don't see a ring on your finger. So I was like, blah, blah, blah. I think I still got her number. But anyway, it was on my phone when I got home from a mission. So that's all I know. So that's all I remember. I don't remember how I got it, but I think she gave it to me. But yeah, she went on a mission after I left, and I didn't know that. But I didn't really talk to her much. I saw her around. I thought she was really cute. But and then I tried to talk to her at a dance, but she had a boyfriend. But I dated around though. I had fun. But also I left my mission with an empty canteen. I didn't have any girls I was writing. But it was great. That was fun, dude. That was probably like my most fun I've had in the church. That
Mm,
year I was preparing to go on a mission.
I
That
love
was
that.
fun. And, yeah.
And then, okay, so tell us where you went on your mission and kind of give us a summary of your mission experience and how it's influenced you going forward.
Yeah, I went to Leeds, England. So that's Northern England. And that was the hardest 2 years I have ever experienced. And I think I ever would experience in my life. Like it's just a different hard, you know. I wouldn't do it right now. That's hard, man. The missionaries are definitely set apart and called of God. Like they're set apart, man. Because thinking about how I did all the stuff I did day to day for 2 years, I don't know how I did it, man. But I mean, yeah, I was like it built me. It built me. Everything I have in my life. I say every particle in my life right now is for my mission. Every particle, anything, family, kids, everything. It's all for my mission. That's that's my experience, my mission. But the thing is, there's a lot of missionaries that are like out there because just to be out there and out there with no faith, which is great. They're out there with no faith. They're finding the testimony and everything themselves. That's great. There's a lot of missionaries that broke rules, and I'm like, dude, why are you even out here? But some missionaries even changed, and developed and all that. But I was all in from the get go, all in because of how much the sacrifices I made in my life to be there. So that's why it was so paramount.
Just to state the obvious here, missionaries are not forced to stay on missions. They have a choice every day to leave if they chose. And yet for 2 years, you stayed and made a decision every day to stay on your mission.
Yeah.
And even though it was the hardest thing you'd done, you'd gotten before that time, you were sort of hot, cold as it relates to God. On a mission, you sort of have to stay at least lukewarm for the entire time or you wouldn't survive. And I love that you give almost everything that you have today is because of your mission. And your wife, I guess, served alongside you, not in Leeds probably, and you weren't even writing each other, but somehow you were growing up into the gospel in two different times and places. So yeah.
I wrote her once. She never wrote me back. Like she was in Ecuador, so supposedly it was like hard to like write letters. And we emailed. We emailed towards like kind of throughout the mission, but mainly we started emailing a lot back and forth towards the end of her mission, probably the last couple quarters of my mission. And I knew it was real when she emailed me from her personal email after she got home. She got home 3, 4 months before me. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh snap, she emailed me from her personal email. I'm like, oh yep, I'm marrying her. I knew I was gonna marry her before I got home. But
Oh my goodness.
we weren't like flirting. We weren't flirting much. Like, no, not nothing like that. So I mean, we were just getting to know each other and then a lot of things lined up. We had so much in common. And she actually met my mom in the temple. 'Cause my mom knew her mom in the temple. They were working in the temple. And then she actually met my mom. My mom told me about her. She's like, oh, actually, I think I met her mom because she was telling me about her daughter that was on a mission in Ecuador and then this and that. And then I think, yeah, I met her. I was like, what? You met? What's her? I'm like, what the heck? I was, oh, yep, 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 it's over. It actually happened. I married her. We got engaged 2 weeks after I got home, married 3 months after, done.
Oh my
Didn't
goodness. I did not know that. That is fast. Well, when you know
Yeah,
what you want, I guess
yeah,
she knew what she
exactly.
wanted. You know what you wanted. So
Yep.
it's
Been married
fantastic.
ever
So,
since.
so where were you when you got home from your mission? Did you go back to California or
Yeah,
where was
Concord,
home for you?
same home.
Concord, same. Okay.
So I had a couple homecoming talks and I was getting home from my mission. Those first like few like weeks are just like so good. I don't know. My wife struggled to transition when coming home. She was like, didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to hang with anybody. She was like a typical like, someone that would like struggle transitioning. Me, I was like ready. Like she had to get warmed up for 3 months before I got home because if we got home at the same time, she already tried to friend zone me when I got there after our first or second date. Like she was just like still even like Like, man, dude, like, that was rough, you know, but I didn't transition. Whoo, I was ready. There was no transition for me at all. I mean, I was over there knocking on people's door heck early in the morning and stuff. I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know why I was doing that. Yeah, but that's my transition. I was ready.
Yeah. That's amazing. You know, but you think about your life prior to your mission, you were as you talked about these cycles you went through, you know, your body can get used to that. It can get used to the fact of, "Okay, I'm doing this thing for a while, now I'm doing this thing, I'm doing these things," and then after a while, you start thinking, "I need change." You know, I need change just to survive, and so for 2 years, you went through a cycle that, you'd never done before, and probably that's probably partly why the reason I'm so hard for you, and then you came back, and you're ready for the next chapter of your life, and it happened to be an amazing wife. So you married up, and, let's talk through that journey. So you knew each other before your mission, you came home, you resurrected a relationship even though she tried to friend zone you for a while, and you got married soon after that. So take us from that marriage to today. Let's hear about some of the next chapters of your life that are memorable that you like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, we married a little over 9 years now. I've been on for my mission like 9 years and a few months. February. So February, March, April, May, June. So 9 years and 4 months. We've been together since I've been home.
Hmm.
And we got married 3 months after. So ever since I've been home, I've been with my wife now. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot. She was working. I didn't have anything. You know how it is when you miss. I didn't have a phone. I don't have a car. I wasn't set up with everything like a lot of these kids are. You know, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. You know, single mom, still working night shifts. Same scenario.
Tell us about after your mission. What were you thinking about what's next? You're newly married. I don't know where you're living because you don't, you know, you didn't have a job, you didn't have a phone, you didn't have a car, you didn't have all those things. So how did you get to the next chapter of your life?
Well, my wife she was making good money when I got home. She had a good job. And then she hooked me up with a warehouse position at her job. I was there for a few months and then I went into solar sales. So I was there. I started doing door to door. And then after that, we moved out to Utah and I got into tech sales. But I was thinking about going to school. I mean, for the record, I didn't ever graduate high school. I was close. I was just always like in and out, in and out, in and out. But I was super close to graduating and I never went to college. I probably took a couple courses when I was like 18, but just for things to learn, you know, like music and stuff like that. You know, it's a couple, I never finished them either in semesters. I just learned it and I was left with the knowledge, you know, so that's when I got into like tech sales. So I've been into sales pretty much ever since I've been home. And then I built a sales organization, built a sales company. I started my own company and I've been a full-time entrepreneur for about 7 years now. And my wife, she's been a stay-at-home mom since she was pregnant with our first daughter. It's about 6 years.
Well done, you, because that's not easy to do, but you've learned a lot of tricks along the way and you probably relate. I know you're very relatable to anyone you've ever met. Certainly, I have felt that relatability in our conversations. So, sales has been your profession ever since you were married. So, tell us about the decision to have children. That's not an easy thing to decide on. Did you just decide from early on that you were going to have children?
Yeah, we're just kind of waiting. So I think we waited 3 years and then we decided to start having children. So we planned all of our pregnancies pretty much to the date.
That's impressive. It's a blessing too. I know
Yeah.
so many people who struggle with that, and that's
Oh man. Yeah.
thing.
I know. I know.
Okay, so you fast forward, you're an executive now, and I would love you to share the story if you don't mind. I know it's not your personal story, but you can just refer to your friend. But you talked about a story that I overheard in a meeting about you being a missionary at your age, which I know a lot of us think, well, we're missionaries our whole life, right? That's our job to be a missionary. But we don't always have those experiences, but you did have one of those experiences. Do you mind sharing that story with our listeners about being a missionary after your mission?
Yeah. I've always been very apprehensive to like sharing my faith or stuff like that, especially being out here in Utah. The story I tell myself is like, which is probably it's not a true story, and something that's everybody needs to take a look at. It's like being in Utah, I feel like you're either a member of the church or you don't like the church, you know? I'm like, well, no, it's kind of like either a member of the church or you're a warm lead. That's a different way of looking at it, you know? So, but yeah, I was at an investor dinner. There was about 20 of us back in, it was at the Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt in Salt Lake City. And I don't typically bring in with business. I don't talk about like religion or anything like that. Typically, I keep it very neutral, you know, unless someone else talks about it, unless you're like a faith-based investor or company or something like that. I'm, oh yeah, that's great. You know, me too. That, you know, but anyway, so the topic of religion got brought up, and this kid, this young investor, they have like a family office, and he's a next gen, and he manages like the funds of the family office, you know, and he's an investor, so he's looking to allocate at this operator I have a good relationship with. So anyway, so I was talking to him about God, and because this is a faith-based operator, so the topic got brought up for some reason, and he started like asking me questions and that's how I had an opportunity to bear my testimony. And he was like, "So how do you know God is there? Like, tell me more about that. Like, how did you come to realize that?" I saw in his eyes the seriousness, the sincerity, and I'm like, "Oh, freak." So anyway, we just zoned in with each other. I'm just like talking to him. Anyways, we built a really good relationship with each other. He's a very young kid. He's in his early 20s. And next day, I think we met up. We worked out with each other at the hotel gym. He was staying there while he was in town. He's not from here, you know? So after we worked out with each other, I gave him a Book of Mormon with my testimony in it. And he was super grateful for it. And he went back to North Carolina, where he's from. He texted me a couple weeks later. He thanked me so much for the Book of Mormon, and he let me know. Actually, I have all the receipts on my phone, by the way. I have everything, the whole journey, just like right there, you know? And he said, I've been reading the Book of Mormon every day. I've been meeting with the missionaries. I've been going to church, and I kind of want to get baptized. I was like, whoa. So I'm like, all right, well, I need to step in, man, and really, you know, support the missionaries in this. You know, so probably about 2-month process, because then he has his concerns and the adversary, because his family's atheist, so he has a atheist, like, environment, you know? So and his dad, he has a good relationship with him, so his dad's, like, super against it, you know, very wealthy family. The other friend is Catholic, and he's like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't join the Mormon church," and blah, 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 and then he had concerns with tithing, and then he had, you know, all these things. I'm just really like, supporting him, you know? But also, I'm there experiencing him saying his first like prayers and then him getting answers to those prayers actually, and him feeling the spirit, him explaining to me what it feels like to feel the spirit and to get his prayers answered and all that. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. And then also he shared an experience. He struggled with something. And ever since he's been reading the Book of Mormon, me with the missionaries, our struggle's gone now. You know, I'm like, whoa, that's awesome, man. Like that's super sick. Like, you know, just experiencing that. And then, yeah, he got a baptismal day. He got pushed back a bit because of the concerns, but I have a picture of him being baptized. And actually, Mike Sanderson was in the process. He was kind of part of the process a little bit because I was asking him for a Book of Mormon. So I also keep him in the loop because he's the Elders Quorum president. So I send him screenshots and I send him like pictures, and then he's like, "Oh, that's great," blah blah blah. You know, so he's a good support there. And yeah, I talked to him about a week ago. He's still going to church. He sent me all these pictures of him and the assistant missionaries and all these steakhouses. They're getting wine to die by this guy. They're getting taken care of. He was like, I would love to marry any one of these girls. Like he's a young guy. He's very sharp, extremely sharp kid. I got 22, waking up at 6, 5 in the morning every day, going to bed at 9, like just vetting deals, going to conferences, traveling the country, looking at different operators, allocating portfolio money. If it's like, dude, like so sharp. He's very privileged, right? But still, he's a very sharp, militant guy. You know, all these privileged kids be spoiled and just run away and go do normal stuff, but he's not. He has his own company and everything. You know, so he's a very, very good friend of mine now. I mean, you know, I talk to him all the time, and he's still very strong in the gospel. He let me know his testimony is unshakable. I'm like, wow, this is crazy to see. It's a beautiful thing to see, man. I wish I was there to baptize him. I was out of town that weekend, so I couldn't.
Mm, wow. You know, it is interesting. Sometimes we live our lives and forget that the Book of Mormon, the gospel, restored gospel, it changes people. You look at your own life and the changes that you've made. And I love this journey toward the gospel and away from the toxic relationships of your life. And I think that is what the gospel can offer individuals. And it sounds like for this person who came from a position of privilege, of money, of status, he still needed the gospel to help mend or build the bridges within his soul to connect with God. And I love that it happened for you. It happened for me. It happened for him. It's happened for every disciple of Jesus Christ, where we have to come to the realization that we want the Savior in our life and we need what he has to offer. And I love that you experience that in your life even now. So that leads us up to our last couple of questions. So the first is, with your life experience, what gems of wisdom would you share if you're sitting down with a young Kenny teenager who's going through it, I'll just say, and chasing status, chasing something out there? What advice would you give to that young man or woman who's in that place in their life?
When you have an opportunity in life, and everybody has them, I don't care if you're homeless or on drugs or whatever, everybody gets opportunities in life. Is to take those opportunities. And if there's something holding you back from being able to take those opportunities, stop that crap. Like, for real. If I was talking to my younger self or anybody, everybody knows what good opportunities they've had in life. Not everybody knows which ones they've turned down, or they know they might have an opportunity in front of them right now. But there's like, "Oh, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable," or "I have to give up doing this. I have to give up XYZ to do that." Or if I wanna go to school, have to get a job or help pay for it. I don't know, it could be any opportunity, but take it. Take those opportunities. Take as many of them as you can, because if you don't, you're gonna lose. God's trying to give you blessings. You're saying no to all the blessings, so, like, where is it gonna leave you? Where is it gonna leave you?
Take your shot. I like
Yeah.
that.
Every time.
As I've seen in my life so often, it seems like those opportunities come when you least expect them, or they present themselves and you just sort of pass over them. But I love the advice of taking the opportunities whenever they come your way, because then God can direct your path where you're at. Okay, so thank you for your wisdom and sharing all that with us, Kenny. For that person, that return missionary who's trying to balance professional ambitions, family, service to God, what final thoughts or sort of guideposts might you offer our listeners who are going through that?
I'd say the best thing you can do is get around people that have the results that you want, or have at least the vision that you want, and they're actively pursuing that vision. You want to associate yourself around people that have the same vision, the same mindset. You just got to make sure you're on the right path to do that. There's one question I ask myself, which keeps my circle pretty tight and makes me around people that are very high quality people. High quality can mean anything. It could be spiritual, it could be fit, it could be success, it could be anything. Family, a father that's a really good dad, any of that. But this is the one question I ask myself. If people are you hanging around, would you want your kids to grow up to be just like these people? If the answer is no, I mean, you probably shouldn't be hanging around them, man. That's the big paramount question I like to ask. So in my circle, people I hang around frequently and talk to, freaking heck yeah, man. I would love my kids to be someone like Ty. I love my kids to be someone like you. So I love my kids to be someone like Mike Sanford or Kenny Hicks. Like, heck, dude, of course, man. Like, absolutely. And these are people I'm naming that you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, so this find those like-minded individuals. I'm like, hey, eventually you want kids one day. What if this person you're hanging around, what if that was your kid? Would you be like thrilled? I mean, everybody has a different like success that they want their kids to be. Maybe for some person that might be great for them. That's the question I can have people ask themselves. They'll exercise.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kenny, we admire you. We love you. We appreciate you. And I love the advice of go surround yourself with good people. Thank you. I'm glad to have been associated with you and include you as part of those in my circle that I admire immensely. So, all right, brother, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Appreciate it, man.
We hope you enjoyed today's program. It is our sincere hope that you gain insights from these lived experiences of disciples of Jesus Christ as you navigate your next chapters in life. We look forward to having you join us each week for the unfolding chapters of our guests. Remember to follow us on Instagram at RMNextChapters for announcements and updates, Also, you can visit us on our website at rmnextchapters.com, where you can listen to each podcast directly or link to your favorite podcasting platform. As always, if you have any thoughts or feedback, we'd love to hear it. Please send them to sid@rmnextchapters.com. See you soon.